It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday, and this is my second attempt at Feedback Friday here. I am completely exhausted. I am so tired. I feel like I have the flu. So forgive me in advance. I know people love to criticize when I am not script level coherent, but this is not the week to fuck with me on that one. Okay. Um, I expected some spiciness in comments when, we talk about mothers screwing up their sons on Monday, and then our least favorite female superheroes on Tuesday. Wednesday went okay. But it's been a tiring week, and I felt like I fucked up handling one guy who had a strong emotional reaction, and I fucked up because I backed off to try to spare his feelings, and then he just went off hard on the mods on the Discord. And the one firm rule in our Discord is don't fight with the mods. And so I felt like I didn't show proper leadership there because I was trying to be like, okay, look, guy's emotional. Just, I'm not going to fight with him on this. It's not worth it. But I don't expect everyone to drop a conversation because I do. I just thought it was better for other people to have the conversation because it's my server, and the guy was making broad comments about women, and I'm like, nope. And even men were fighting with him, and he was subtweeting and calling us a clique, and what he said was factually wrong. And this is why I want to talk about the negative impact of the manosphere today, because guys like this are victims of it, and they don't even realize it. Because one of the things that blew it up was one of the mods saying, this is manosphere talk. Because, the comment was something, we were talking about rites of passage and the loss of rites of passage for men. And he made this comment about one modern rite of passage for men is having to amass resources so that women will talk to you like they didn't in high school or something like that. And as one of the mods pointed out, that an ongoing activity is not a rite of passage. A rite of passage is a test or ceremony that moves you from one stage of life to another. And I really do believe that part of the crisis of masculine identities right now is because there aren't, the ones that used to give people a sense of transition, like getting their driver's license, even turning 21 and being able to buy alcohol. Younger people aren't drinking, so there's not even that, right? There just isn't any stamp of you're an adult now. And it's messing with people. And it's messing with everybody, but there's a unique thing with men, because historically there have been, in Judaism it's the bar mitzvah, but even in Christianized culture, and I talked about that this is most stark in Christian cultures. There isn't a traditional you're a man now ceremony. I mean, okay, the bar mitzvah in Judaism happens at like 12 or 13 years old, and that's not, you are a fully formed man. That means you're now ethically responsible for your own behavior starting now. Obviously, that's a lifelong thing, but it's not on your parents anymore. you're old enough to start making choices for yourself. And I mean, that's obviously something that informs my opinion about the whole, oh, teenagers can't make decisions about their own gender identity. If, 6,000 years ago, people were saying, hey, a 12 or 13-year-old can make some moral choices for themselves. They can make some important choices for themselves. If they were saying that 6,000 years ago, then I'm inclined to go, okay, maybe there's something to that. Somebody's car alarm is going off outside. Forgive me if I seem distracted. Let me do the help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Okay. There are legitimate reasons for a lot of men to feel like they're walking around with a lot of pain. And one of the most powerful things I experienced this week is some guys feeling comfortable enough to admit, misogynistic opinions or misogynistic thoughts because of what happened with their mother. And that's an important part of steps toward healing, right? Being able to say, I thought these things and I felt these things, and misogyny was their word. And being able to unburden that is really important, right? And not be negatively judged, just be able to say it, right? That's significant. That's powerful. That's important, and I'm happy to be a small part of that. That's a big thing for a guy to admit, because it's framed by society as, one of these big, terrible things. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think that acknowledging thoughts is the way we prevent actions. But, then there was the losing of the shit and going on about, and I've talked about how I cannot stand the mating and resources shit on this channel before. It is a breaking of containment of academic language. It's a problem when it's feminist academia. A lot of the times that is an oxymoron, but it's a problem in feminist academia. It's a problem with things like evolutionary psychology, which is really theoretical and very hard to prove that, stuff that mankind experienced 10,000 years ago is more potent to why we do things now than, our family of origin. For interest, I cannot stand that shit. All of it, just get it out of popular discourse. Get it out. Use words that have common meanings. Because something like privilege means one thing to me and another thing to somebody else. And to a lot of people, privilege is just a stand-in for power. You have power. That's not what it means to me. What it means to me is, this is something like when I say it's a privilege to be able to come on and have a platform to talk to you guys, I'm aware it can be taken away. That's not power, right? It's conditional. And it's a loaded word because nobody can agree on what it means. And originally it meant something that, okay, there's this phenomenon. It's not an advantage because advantages are permanent, right? Until there's some sort of, like, if you can run really fast, okay, you break your leg, is taken away. But a privilege is something that there can be no change but a social one, and it's gone. And that's why it's important to understand. And when you get too many privileges, when you get too much life on easy mode, it makes you less of a good player, right? Your gameplay slips. You get sloppy and lazy. You know, that's what it means to me. But I know that's not the common use of the word. Similarly, the manosphere lures guys in with this language that seems very scientific. And yes, if you pull up like anthropology papers about some African tribe, they will talk about mating and resources. And part of the problem with the history there is that when you start using language like that, you tend to be looking down on people, you know, because practically it is not just about oomph, oomph, pop out kid, right? There's emotions for men, for women, for everybody else, right? Some women experience those emotions more strongly than other women. Some men experience those emotions more strongly than other men. No matter what your emotional range is, you have the right to belong to a gendered identity group. You know, you shouldn't have your masculinity card taken away for being too emotional or not emotional enough, right? There has to be a spectrum of experience. But what the manosphere does is really does bait and switch this theory of the case that everything is about umph, umph, pop out kid, cha-king, cha-king, cha-ching, women want money. And it's an incredibly invalidating message that hooks guys initially for the same reason that toxic radical feminist messaging about all men are rapists and things like that does. It sends the message, it's not your fault, right? Here's the problem. At some point, we know that people who were abused previously are more likely to be abused going forward. And this is not victim blaming. This is something I had to confront myself. Abuse either destroys your boundaries or allows them or doesn't allow them to form. And so one of the things that a healthy person learns is how to set different types of boundaries. And two types of boundaries are physical, sexual boundaries and then financial boundaries. Your money's your money, right? Doesn't matter who you are, that's your money. And if you don't want a woman who is primarily looking for a guy with money, that's okay. There are women with their own money. Now then you get into the fact that some women are hesitant to date a guy who makes less than they do because they've had experience with men who can't handle it. You know, it's the Huey from The Boys. He dates Starlight, who has superpowers, and all of a sudden he wants superpowers for himself because he feels inadequate, right? That is not the same as demanding a guy make more money. That is the reality that the guys in your past have not been able to handle making less. Not the same thing, right? The whole point, I know for me, the reason that I wanted a certain amount of career success is I grew up poor. And part of the reason I grew up poor is that my father was chronically unemployed because he'd always have angry outbursts and get fired at work. And I didn't want to be reliant on another person's salary. Now we live in the two-income, singles tax era, but you know what I mean. It's important that I make my own money precisely because, no, being reliant on anybody else for your financial stability is a vulnerable, scary, and easily victimized place. And so the fact that the manosphere centers, she take my money when I'm in need. I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Like, don't go full Kanye, right? The fact that that's being centered when that is only a subgroup of women, it's not all women, right? That's just, it's not my fault, it's their fault. It's not my fault women don't like me. It's those gold digging bitches. Resources, mating. Like, oh my God. Maybe the problem is that you're referring it to mating. Like, don't say mating. Hello, Miss So-and-so. I would like to mate with you. Would you like some of my resources? Like, no. You're blowing it, man. Like, people aren't rejecting you when you talk that way because you don't have enough money. People are rejecting that. One, because it's not true. There's data. Two, you sound like everybody's least favorite first year. Like, to me, I think of my first year anthropology professor who thought incest was just a social taboo when people talk about that shit. And the fact is that the connection to number of kids and wealth is very different depending on what culture you're from. And it's highly cultural. I mean, China with the one child policy, Japan with a very low birth rate, right? It's not a money thing so much anymore. It's that women in Asian countries, like the 4B movement and things like that, they just don't want any of it, right? But within America, I'll link this in the description box. It's a chart crunching the data of household income level, household income percentile, and children born per woman from the period of 2017 to 2021. And what you see is that, it starts off higher in the lowest income percentile. And then for everyone but foreign born women, it drops precipitously from like 10 to 30%, wobbles until like 60%, and then starts rising again for everybody but native born non-Hispanic Black people. And so it's sort of, if you have a lot of money, you have more kids. If you have no money, you have more kids. And then in between, foreign born women at the 50% percentile have the most kids, followed by native born non-Hispanic whites, followed by native born Hispanic, followed by native born non-Hispanic Blacks, followed by native born non-Hispanic, everybody else, and lumping everybody else in is all right. So much for mating and resources, right? People date, people get together. When I was first when I was first living with my husband, we weren't married yet, but we hunted for change around the house to buy groceries. Money was that tight. So, I mean, somebody coming and saying, must amass resources so women will talk to me. Like, just, hello? Look at who you're talking to. And, I mean, there's a lot of subtext there, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to make assumptions. But this is the cycle that guys who start adopting manosphere language, they get into a cycle of repetition, rejection, repetition, rejection. And, you know, it perpetuates this idea that women don't like nice guys like me. Women only want rich guys with a giant dick. And what's it? The 666, the 6-pack, the 6-inch, the 6-figure, like that. Yikes. I mean, that's the thinking of a narcissistic sociopath right there. And female sociopaths exist. Female narcissists exist. And here's the problem with that, is that clogs up everything. The offense and disgust that people feel at that manosphere talk. And what that means is that guys with legitimate beefs, like this one commenter, where this is an example of a comment that was very emotional, but I think it was warranted. Right? This kind of comment gets lost in the meeting and resources woman shit. The real fun mind trip is when you've been abused by your mother and then get told, but guess what? You're the problem because you're male. You have the power in every situation because reasons. Even though every decision in your life has revolved around how your mother will react to it, she apparently doesn't have any power at all. That is a totally fair comment. And guys like this get drowned out by the grift cycle in the manosphere. They don't get any attention because everything is this death match. Radical feminism, manosphere, fight. And nobody else can get a word in edgewise, because the minute you try to talk about this stuff, someone comes in from one of those toxic camps and just shits up the entire discussion. And then there's so much emotion and boundaries aren't respected. And so you can't have the talk. And I was left so pissed off that I had to fucking tap out in my own Discord server this week. And the guy just fought with the mods after I'm like, I'm out, you know. That's not gonna make anything better for that guy. It made me feel like shit because I felt like I should have fought with them. It wasn't other people's problem. You know, the mods have said, no, that's not how we feel. But I feel this way. It's like, God, you know, I tried to be nice and compassionate. And in that case, it was completely the wrong call. And I hate that. I hate that because I hear guys saying they want compassion. They want to be listened to. And then you get somebody like that who is so aggrieved and so out of touch with the emotional reaction that they can't see it for what it is. And it does, I mean, I am going to be hesitant to show that kindness next time. And that's completely logical, and it sucks because it does not solve the problem at all. And, you know, this is why we need men's stuff that is not part of the manosphere. But it is so hard to get funding and support for men's stuff that isn't part of the because of the manosphere. It's just too that right now. And that's not me saying it should be. That's just me saying it so. Similarly, feminism's a dirty word right now too. So nobody's got it great in the gender space right now. It's all sort of toxic. And this sucks because everybody has an issue or two related to this. And, there are a lot of guys walking around with that, yeah, I can't talk about what happened with my mother because, I had all the power. And you do get, one guy really got up on me with, what's with the 547 layer compliment sandwich for women neglecting or abusing their children? Would you say that an absentee father is just doing his best, or it comes from a good place? The intention isn't what matters, it's the effect. And I responded, the absentee fathers who are in the military or who are on oil rigs are absolutely doing their best. And 547 layer compliment sandwich was an unfair exaggeration, but the idea of absentee fathers are doing their best. Well, you know what? Everybody's doing their best. The question is your best actually good? The only way your best becomes good is if you start owning your shit and stop just flinging misery around. And there's such a gulf. There's such this free fall period for people, men and women alike, where they can't accept kindness. They can't accept help. They can't accept support. They push people away because they assume some trick. They assume when someone says, look, just stop the manosphere talk, man. They blow up instead of going, that person bothered to say, hey, this is what I need to talk to you. Getting offended by what someone calls it instead of understanding what they're saying. Not really helpful here. Recognizing that these are charged things. And my attitude is, if I could listen at least once a week to a guy telling me that women are gold diggers, everybody can be expected to eat a little shit to solve this problem. And if you're waiting for everyone else to go first, you're just making people eat shit. And that's what the manosphere trains people to do. And the thing is, a lot of guys have consumed manosphere content without realizing that that's what it was. And so they're getting these bad reactions, not understanding why, and it's driving them deeper into misery. And these guys are victims too, but we're going to lose some of them. And we can't do anything about that because there's, you cannot expect a woman to sit there and listen to why all women are terrible, or women as a class are terrible. And if you're not terrible, well, you're some weird exception, or you're just too ugly to count, right? That's not reasonable. Even racists aren't really not that overt a lot of the time, it's awful what people have been programmed to say. And it's exhausting. And I think it's important to remember that every person you're talking to has feelings, and that academy speak, it's designed to detach you from precisely those feelings that are going to make you an effective communicator. What am I feeling? What does the other person seem to be feeling? If I'm not sure, let's check it out. That's the building blocks of effective communication in the real world. Because if you can't handle someone's feelings, then you're never going to get to the facts, because feelings happen faster. And When you start arguing facts, when you start stating something as a fact, people have the right to challenge that fact. If you're just talking about your feelings, different story, which is why I encourage people to talk about their feelings and their experiences as an individual. And your individual experiences with women are just the women you've met. Not all women. It's not defining women. Just stick to the actual facts and don't extrapolate. You'll get better results. People are looking to support you. But when you're saying something that's just not factually true, they can't. Okay? Let's just all, that's simple. It's not necessarily easy because it's vulnerable. Because then this is what happened to me. This is how I was abused. This is how I was taken advantage of. That's hard to talk about. But that's better than just stating something counterfactual and then blowing up when somebody calls you on it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. Please be kind and gentle to each other. Everybody's going through some shit right now. And have the best weekend possible.